The Philadelphia Eagles just suffered a brutal loss to the Giants, and things do not look good for this team right now. They start off 4-0, but now they have lost two straight, and they seem kind of shocked. And there is simply not a good feeling in the air over in Philly right now. And I wish I could say, with them having started off this season 4-0, that they were doing something so great early on and that I could not see this coming. Because if that was the case, they could simply go back to what they were doing early, and maybe they've been trying to implement something new and that hasn't been working, and that's why they've been losing. But that hasn't been the case. You've had warning signs all year, and now it's finally starting to catch up to them with these two straight losses. Because simply put, I don't think there's been a time this season where the Eagles have looked too great. Their record might have said so, but if you were watching the games, there were a lot of issues with the team, and it felt like sooner rather than later, some point, it was going to turn around and bite them. Because they have been really inconsistent. And I don't just mean inconsistent game by game. I mean on a quarter by quarter, half by half basis. You never know what kind of Philly team you're going to get, whether it's on offense or defense. On offense, man, there'll be times where they go one half and they're scoring on a lot of possessions. And then come the second half, they cannot get anything going, and they just have to hold on for dear life based off what they did in the first half and just hope that they can carry that to victory. And man, it's the same thing with their defense. They might start off with a great defensive half, and then come that second half, everything just falls apart. And they just have to hope they built up such a good early lead that they can simply maintain that. The way this team is playing right now is eerily similar of an Eagles team from 2 years ago, the 2023-24 season, where they began that year 10-1. They were on top of the world, but even at the time, there were still some warning signs. Yes, they were winning, but they still didn't look good in doing so. And then the rest of that season, they won one more game. They went 11-6. They became the first team in NFL history to start 10-1 and not win 12 games, and that is with the additional 17-game schedule. And then, of course, they got blown out in the wildcard round by the Buccaneers. That Eagles team reminds me of this one, in which even in the wins, there are a lot of things you can look at and say, hey, this team has problems. This team has things that we need to work through. Now, beyond inconsistency, there are some other issues with this team. First of all, the run game. It has simply not been efficient. It has not been effective this year the way that it typically is. And when you're Philadelphia, you are a very run-heavy team. Everything that you do, your success is predicated upon the run being at least moderately successful. Because that sets everything else up. It sets up the pass game and Jalen Hurts and the play action on these quick passes or even the deep shots. It sets everything up there. So when your run game's not working, a lot of your offense is not working. The O-line keeps underachieving, and this is a very talented O-line. But yet, they're just not creating gaps. And in spite of this, we keep seeing inside runs being called over and over, and Saquon just cannot get anything out of them. Now, at the start of this game against the Giants, he routed off 2 runs for 30 yards, and it was like, hey, maybe this is going to be the game this year where Saquon finally breaks out. We see that 2K Saquon once again, but that was not the case. That was pretty much all he had all night. And if you look at the yards per carry by the end of this game, it looks good for Saquon. You can say, why didn't they run it with him more? But the reason for that is, one, yes, that yards per carry did look good, but it was heavily inflated by those first 2 runs. He never really got back to that point again. He was never really that explosive again. And secondly, they were down by so much in that second half, they couldn't really go to that run game. They built such a hole early that they could not work with their bread and butter, even if they wanted to, even if it was working. They simply could not do it because they did not have the time to do it. The entire offensive identity for this Philadelphia Eagles team is predicated upon their strong offensive line and their dominant run game. That's how they won the Super Bowl last year, but you were getting neither of those currently. And so when you're the Eagles and your rushing attack is not working, that means your offense is not working because your offense is built on the success of that run game. Then moving over, we of course have the defense, and let's first talk about the cornerback room, because there is a severe lack of depth that they have here. As soon as Quinyon Mitchell went down tonight, it seemed like that was wraps for the Eagles, because now, who did they really have to cover? And it wasn't like they were playing some elite wide receivers. Malik Neighbors is out. They've got a rookie quarterback, but in spite of that, the Eagles got torched from their cornerback room. Both Adoree Jackson and Keely Ringo did not perform. And this was not a game where they were matched up against, say, the Vikings wide receiver room, Jay Jettis, Jordan Addison. It was not the Buccaneers room, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, and Emeka Egbuka. All you had to do was cover Wan'Dale Robinson. And they simply could not manage that. So what happens now is, say, Quinyon is out for more games, which, he was questionable. I don't think he's going to be out for a lot in the same period of time. However, if all you can do is rely on your cornerback one to be healthy, that is not a recipe for success, because if he goes down and all of a sudden the guys you have as his replacements on the bench waiting to get in there, if they cannot cover Wan'Dale Robinson, what's going to happen when they're faced with a tougher matchup? And think about the division you're in. You've got CeeDee Lamb. You have Malik Neighbors when he's healthy. Terry McLaurin. This is the best you're going to get when it comes to the opposing wide receivers you're going to have to face. And you couldn't even handle that. There's a severe lack of depth, and that was killing them in this game. However, at least if your secondary is bad, you can cover that up with a good D-line. But even that has been lackluster these last couple games. This pass rush has been basically non-existent. Now, they have not had Jalen Carter for 2 games, but they are struggling to get consistent pressure. And they've got talent there once again, but yet they still have not managed to perform. Both the run defense and the pass rush have not been good this year. And just like that O-line, they are severely underachieving. So those are some glaring flaws with this team. And yeah, once again, it's reminiscent of the 2023-24 Eagles. They had a lot of problems. I think back to defense. I think back to the secondary especially. I think back to the Jekyll and Hyde half-by-half basis. It was a similar thing on that 1-5 stretch of the year, in which they might look great the first half, but come that second half, their secondary, they keep getting burnt over and over. And no matter how good a lead they had in the first, they can't put up anything on offense, and they can't stop anything on defense, and they wind up losing the game. And the only person that they can point a finger at is themselves. It's a similar thing here. And you think back to a reason for that and why they look so bad in the back half of that 2023-24 season. And a lot of people want to point to the coordinators. Because the year before that, in 2022-23, they made the Super Bowl. And then both those coordinators, they found head coaching jobs. And so they brought in a new OC and a new defensive coordinator. And that was where the struggles we started to see them. And it felt like they just didn't understand the team as well as the coordinators from the year prior. And then when they won Super Bowl the year after, they brought in some new coordinators and it felt like they really got a grasp of this offense and this defense. And this year, they have the same DC, they have Vic Fangio, but the offense is completely new. But just like that 2023-24 season with Brian Johnson, I feel like if you want to point the finger at the OC, that's absolutely valid. However, we have to make it work because they can't just move on from him in the middle of the season. And if they were to do that, they are not winning Super Bowl. They are not going to win a Super Bowl by bringing in a new OC. That's not going to work. That's going to be a massive adjustment, one that you would want to do in the offseason, not right now. You can't just fire him right now and learn this whole new offense. This is what you're going to have to work with. You have to work with what you have right now. You have to work through these clear issues that you have. You have to resolve the problems that are evident for all to see. Because the issues are blatant and they have to be addressed if you want to go anywhere. This team does not look like a Super Bowl team. They don't look like a team that can go very, very far at all. And it's even more frustrating because they have all the talent in the world, but they just keep underachieving. They look undisciplined at times too. There were moments in this game and in last game too where they had some critical pass interference, unnecessary roughness calls that just took them out of it. Something needs to be done about this Philly team because based off what I'm seeing, man, it's not good because they remind me of a team from a few years ago that had a historic collapse and lost in the wild card round. They look like that same team, and they're more talented than ever. They've got Saquon Barkley now, but they still have these internal issues, I believe, that just keep them underperforming. Because it's happened twice now, and I don't think that's a coincidence. I think there are some internal issues with this team, something that just needs to be worked out. Because this team, they have the potential to be so great. We saw them in Super Bowl last year; they looked incredible. They stomped the Chiefs. And this, on paper, is the same team, but they look like a night and day difference. I was hoping last week's loss would serve as a wake up call, and on Thursday night we would see the Eagles with a renewed focus, a renewed energy, a renewed spirit, in which they could come out here and make a statement against the Giants team with a rookie quarterback. missing their top 2 wide receivers, but that was not the case. They were worse than they ever have this year. And they need to get back on track quickly if they want to have a chance at being that Super Bowl team that we know they're capable of being.